Ann Goldbach of the Vote No, Keep the Ban group spoke with Newton News Director Jenn Adams about their reasons to vote no on November 4th's ballot question on repealing the overnight winter parking ban.
Joining me via Zoom is Ann Goldbach, a member of the Vote No, Keep the Ban group, who opposes the upcoming ballot question to repeal the overnight winter parking ban. The ban has been in effect since 1936, with no parking on Newton streets between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. from December 1st through March 31st. Thank you for joining me, Ann. I appreciate you taking the time to tell me a little bit more about the Vote No group. So first, why do you want to keep the ban in place?
The main reason is for public safety. In my opinion, and in our opinion, public safety outweighs convenience. We've kept the ban to make sure our streets are clear for emergency response, for plows, and for driving, frankly, because if we don't have the ban, it's going to be very difficult to clear those streets.
And this is just for those snowy days in terms of, snowing overnight, which my understanding is that those will still be in place, emergency parking ban for if it does snow.
Well, frankly, we can't just call a snow emergency whenever we want. Calling a snow emergency costs between $4 and $5 million each time. So that is not a good solution to the ban. What we want to see is a measured change, a neighborhood-specific change, a change that will adapt to our current needs here in Newton. And we think that we should keep the ban until our city leaders come up with a better one.
And speaking of alternative plans, I did notice on your website that you did mention some, what alternatives you might have if, you might create a compromise somewhere along the way.
Well, there are a number of possible solutions. There are exceptions that could be made for village centers, for streets that are heavily traveled, for narrow streets, things like that. Other people have suggested alternate parking on different nights. So the different councilors have even proposed a pilot in parts of Newton, but not others. So there's a number of things to consider.
What do you envision if the parking ban is repealed?
I think it's going to be big trouble. The National Weather Service is predicting more snow this year. What you're going to see is plows going around cars. And after 2 or 3 smaller storms, the roads are going to get very narrow. The cars are going to be plowed in, and that's going to be a big problem.
And, the city council has taken this up multiple times and hasn't gotten anything passed in terms of, making this something that's permanent, not necessarily the repeal, but, perhaps something in the middle. So are you willing to talk with the other side if this does in fact pass and maybe negotiate something to, I guess, keep those streets safe, as you say?
Well, the people we're going to have to speak to is the city council. Mm-hmm. If the repeal passes, actually. I just want to remind you that many of our neighboring towns have a ban, including Brookline, Wellesley, Needham, Belmont, and Arlington, and Watertown and Lexington keep a winter overnight ban. Mm-hmm. Look at what happens in Boston. They put milk crates and chairs, lawn chairs, out to save parking spaces. We don't want that here.
Do you think it would be kind of like chaotic if in fact that did happen?
I do think it would be chaotic. Parking's at a premium in Boston, in Newton, and we have more condominium complexes going up, more rental complexes going up. There's going to be many more cars on the streets than we have even now, and parking's at a premium. So developers are going to be less motivated to provide on-site parking. I think we're creating big problems if we just repeal it without a plan.
Do you think that the city council could make that, part of like they currently do? You need to have so many parking spots if you're going to build multi-housing?
Well, even with some of these developments, there's not necessarily two parking spaces per unit. So already there's going to be more cars on the street.
What is it that you'd like to tell voters about this not having to repeal the ban? I mean, what is it that you really want to get across in terms of keeping the ban intact?
I think that our city councilors are really serious this time about coming up with a good solution, and that we should wait for that instead of creating more problems while something happens. So for this winter, we're asking people to vote no on the ban and let our city government find something that works for more people.
And that's pretty much the goal, is to, keep the ban in place, but perhaps negotiate some way in terms of allowing parking in certain areas?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's different ways to do it too. There are permit processes that could happen. There are areas like Nonantum where the streets are very narrow. Maybe we exclude places like that for overnight parking. There's so many different possible solutions, but for now, we need to vote no so that we can work on that plan. And I do believe that our city government is very serious this time about moving quickly on it.
All right, Ann, is there anything else you'd like to add to our conversation?
Yes, there are a few things. First, I understand that proponents of the repeal have said this is a matter of convenience and equity. Frankly, parking is a privilege, and Massachusetts courts have said repeatedly that it is a privilege. There is absolutely no constitutional right to parking on our streets. Secondly, they've proposed a reverse 911 as a solution if cars are allowed to park in winter. But the problem with reverse 911 is people may not be home. They might not listen to their voicemail. They might not be able to get up and move their cars when we get a reverse 911 call. The Newton Police Department and the fire department took no position when they were interviewed last month by Fix City News on the ban. They have not said that they're okay with repealing the ban. And again, it's not a matter of convenience or equity. There's no constitutional right to parking. So one other thing I would say is COVID is not a good example of how a repeal of a ban would work. First of all, there was a time when everybody had to stay home. Even when we could move about, more people chose to stay at home. We have many more people on the roads now. They're working out of their homes. We have more cars on the road. So that is not a good example of why we should repeal this ban.
Well, thank you very much, Ann. I appreciate you taking the time
My
to fill us
pleasure.
in on this information. And you mentioned there are two websites available, correct? For people to
Yes,
check more information?
Yeah, newtonparking.com is where you should go at this point. Yeah. And we also, and there are some posts on Facebook as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you
Okay.
very much, Ann. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.